Hey everybody, Alex here, out of the Park 23 Pittsburgh Pirates franchise. Welcome back here. We are at the end of the 2023 season, and there is only one conclusion. We are terrible. We are somehow significantly worse than we were last year, finishing the 2023 season 64-98, so that is about as bad can get. Let's see what we can talk about here. We'll look at the overall standings around baseball, and hopefully my audio sounds decent. Have a new mic, so if you've been following along the Out of the Park series, hopefully things sound okay. There may be one or two bugs to work on, but I'll take care of that for the next video. Let's see, Pirates finishing dead last in the NL by a fairly significant margin. The Reds, who were in last place for quite some time this year, got a little hot, relatively speaking, and won 71 games. Only team worse than Pittsburgh were the Oakland Athletics, finishing 63-99. We won our last two games against the Dodgers, no less, somehow kind of kept them out of that NL West spot in the division, and so they're going to be a wild card team. So that was the only really positive part of the season. Look at the info here. Pythagorean record, 63-99, just again, very similar story to last year offensively, being effectively the worst offense in baseball, and then the pitching was worse compared to last year. Last year, I think we were about average to slightly above. This year, we were below average, decent defensively in terms of the zone rating, but overall, only thing we can hang our hat on is being first in home runs allowed, and I assume that means, hopefully it means the least home runs allowed, but did not help our ERA, which finished 12th overall in baseball. Taking a look at the bulk of the stats this year, really, the stars did play like stars, with Brian Reynolds with a 134 WRC plus and over 4-win kind of season, although there might be maybe a bit of regression overall, but it's probably just some noise. But he was obviously excellent, and Key Brian Hayes had a really good year, almost a 4-war season after just a 2-war season last year. And so the two guys we've locked up long term did play like we need them to, but the supporting cast overall was really poor. I gotta find guys who just have higher contact overall. Andy Rodriguez struggled most of the year, but he came on strong late in the season. If we look at the splits here in terms of the WRC plus, 158 in September, hit 320 after slumping pretty bad in August and being below average in July. And so that's a guy with good numbers overall. Really bad defensively, even with a halfway decent 45 first base positional rating. I think because his infield range is so low, the numbers here are abysmal across the board, and he's only 6 foot tall. He was a negative 3.3 zone rating guy in just 69 starts at first base. And so really a DH, and we're kind of getting into this logjam of guys who have decent bats, but really don't have a place in the field. And we'll talk about some of the names who fall into that category in a moment. Carter Binns, we called up. He gets on base at a good clip. He'll walk a fair amount overall. Probably not as strong of a number you'd like to see for a guy with 65 but the low contact and low avoid Ks. He's striking out still almost 30% of the time. So really don't know what to do with him overall. Doesn't seem like he's a great fit. Diego Castillo had a good start to the year. I think he faded a bit at the end if we look at his splits. Really good start, 116 WRC plus in April, 124 in May, and then kind of towards the end, it kind of started to go downhill. He's played a lot of right for us. He's very oddly a bad right fielder, a -5 zone rating, and I know he was not supposed to be, an all-star Gold Glove guy, but you would think with 55 right field rating, 55 outfield range, he would just be average, it'd be -1, 1.5 zone rating. So that part to me a little strange. And then looking around here, Pagero, the second baseman, one of our kids we were playing this year, he looks okay defensively, but the bat just seems mediocre, and so he's just, I think, a bench guy probably is his ceiling. Nick Gonzalez, another young guy that came up. The numbers overall look, again, average, but I think he hit okay. I mean, the numbers certainly can be better, only an 80 WRC plus, but this is a guy where Defensively, he's below average, a DH candidate. I think there's some optimism with him. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. He's ranked as a top 60 prospect. Still can grow, can still get better. Hopefully that contact improves. But that's a guy that is kind of going to be second baseman, DH, but I don't know exactly what to do with him. Maybe I should have played Tucupita Marcano more. He was in the minors for a large chunk of the season. 62 games down in AAA Indianapolis. I like guys with good avoid Ks and eye discipline, and the contact's not terrible either. I thought he was a good asset for us coming up late in the year, and most of his year was spent, I think, with us late, well, actually, I take that back. He was in June and May, probably getting the bulk of his time, but he did come back up, I think, late in the season, so that's one of those guys will stick around and compete for a spot next year. We did get Otto Lopez back. He spent most of the year on the injured list with a concussion and a setback related to that concussion, but he ended up healing quicker than expected, and that's a guy that I'm hoping can be my starting second baseman next year. Not going to be an elite defender, but the bat looks really strong. Whenever he came back and got healthy, he got off to a really hot start and then faded a bit down the stretch, but the bat bit was kind of low. His walk to strikeout ratio is nearly 1-to-1. The on base, I think, is decent overall, and it is still a pretty small sample size, but he got off to a really hot start for us and then just kind of hit a slump there, but I have not given up on this guy. I think we kind of won this trade. We got him for Anthony Alford from the Blue Jays way back at the start of this series, and so that's a guy that I think can really hopefully make an impact for us next year. Fan favorite and great story, Wilfredo Tovar, spent basically all year with the big leagues. I mean, he played independent ball last year and ends up being a Pirate and signed during spring training when we got rocked with injuries in the infield, and I thought did well. He kind of cooled off towards the end of the year, but still hit 268, and was a respectable player that played solid defense. Not at third base, but a good second baseman, and played pretty well at shortstop overall. So that's a really good story. Will he make the team in 2024? Probably not, but he'll be around, we'll compete, and we'll see what happens. Seth Beer's another guy I just don't know what to do with. Had a really bad year, -1 WAR season, hit 192, only 5 home runs. Really wasn't playing much by the end of the season, as you can tell by the log, and he's upset at me for it, but that BABIP was unusually low, 235 BABIP. Last year with Arizona, 338. Maybe his true BABIP somewhere in between those two numbers, but I think this guy should and could improve next year, and so I do want to play him. Question is, where do you play him? First baseman, DH, but you got Rodriguez, who I like more, that's probably going to DH for us. I just don't know exactly where this guy's going to fit for us, but I do want to give him a second chance. Travis Swaggerty, really good defender. Will he win a Gold Glove this year? 10.5 CR? I think he could. I mean, probably not, but he'll be in the running. He'll be in contention. The bat, it perked up a little bit. I mean, 223, 62 WRC plus, 64 OPS plus. Nothing to get excited about, but he's probably going to be our center fielder. My mission this offseason for the next video is to find more solutions and better solutions at catcher and in center field, but it's just so hard to do. So we'll see what happens. Speaking of catcher, I gave Drew Milas, who we acquired in a trade back in July. This was in the JT Brubaker deal, who it did not seem to do too well in Atlanta. 4.8 ERA coming off that new extension they gave him, but wanted to give Milas some time. Didn't do that well. It's just so hard to find catchers who can hit decently, but at least he's not going to strike out a lot. I don't know how good he was behind the plate. The framing, it feels like no catchers have good framing ability, so maybe I kind of take that with a grain of salt. It'd have a positive zone rating, so I don't know overall, but he'll compete for probably a backup spot next year. Then finally, Ivan Herrera, still listed as a top 100 prospect. I assume when the new rankings for the top 100 come out, he will easily fall off that list, hitting a .168, -2 WAR player. Had basically one of the worst seasons for any batter in baseball this year, and in the entire month of September, got 2 plate appearances, or 2 games in which he appeared in a game. Started September 3rd, and then got a pinch hit situation the 14th. So he's mad at me, but I was giving Bins and Milas some time because I wanted to see what those guys could do. I kind of figured out Herrera not really working out this year, but kept him because he was a Rule 5 guy, and if I didn't want to carry him the entire season, then release him in September, and he goes back to St. Louis, and all that was for naught. So he is not going to be assured of a spot next spring, but he'll be around to compete. The pitching staff, overall, Mitch Keller, just very much an average player. The BABIP was a bit higher this year, but he's not someone I get excited about really at all. I mean, he'll be a cheap contract, a cheap arbitration type deal. You see the BABIP up 24 points compared to a year ago. It's just, he's going to be, ideally a number 5 kind of guy, a long relief type of dude, but right now he's going to stay on our rotation. Roansy Contreras, really tough year for him. I called him back up. He spent some time in AAA to try to work on some stuff and figure things out, and did all right down in AAA, so I called him back up. Unfortunately, not that we're too concerned about wins and losses for a record, but 2-15. That hurts. He was 4-13 last year, so he's 6-28 the last 2 years, which is an ugly number to look at overall. I don't know. I don't know if this guy's gonna make it. We'll see what next year brings. Just going in order of appearances. Matt Kranchik served as a long reliever guy the entire year. That's all he's gonna be, but I think it's serviceable. There's always room to upgrade there, but he's fine. Anthony Banda cooled off. I don't know if I'll even offer him an arbitration and tender him this offseason. He really struggled down the stretch, and I think he's always kind of punched above his weight a little bit. We have other lefty options to look at, like Ryan Baroki, who may get traded. He was pretty strong for us. He should have trade value overall. We'll see what happens there. What gets really interesting here is somebody like Carmen Majinski, and I thank the commenter who corrected me. I butchered the name last time, so it is Majinski. At least hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly now. So him and Kumar Rocker, two of the guys who were up this year as building blocks as starting pitchers. He had a good start, really looked good early on, and then had some rough outings the rest of the way. One game in particular I'm going to talk about here in a moment, but overall I think it was a good year for him, and I'm excited for his future with the Pirates. I do want to look at his game log. Something really crazy happened here. Let's see, August 24th against the Dodgers, a 6-3 loss. Now, the Dodgers are a good team, obviously, but he walked 10 guys. Just a really unbelievable stat line for Majinski. 3 1/3, 5 earned, walked 10, did not strike out anybody. Really unbelievable. And he's got good control, 50 control. It's not elite, of course, but I mean, OSA says it's 55. My Scout says 50. He ends up walking 10 dudes, and so that was kind of the low point for us. And I really mentioned that in particular as well because I'm going to skip to Kumar Rocker. The very next day, Rocker was in line to pitch for the Pirates against the Dodgers, and he ended up, let me pull up the game log here, walking 9. So the next day, August 25th, in another 6-3 loss, identical score, Rocker walked 9. Now, he's got some control issues, so when I saw Majinski walk 10, I went, Rocker might be in for a tough game the next day, and only allowed 4 runs, unbelievably, but 3 2/3 innings, 9 walks, a very similar stat line overall. So 19 walks in 2 games against the Dodgers. That was definitely a tough point of the season. While we're talking about him, Kumar Rocker got into some trouble. The control certainly been a concern for him. His walk and strikeout ratio really poor overall. 7 walks over 9. The BABIP, not that bad. It's not like he got really unlucky. I think the FIP overall, I think actually his FIP is better than Majinski's, but I think that control is going to need to get to 45 for him. But he's had some really good performances. In his last outing, I was encouraged by 5 innings, only 3 hits, only walked 1, and struck out 7 against the Nationals. So that's a good note to go out on. But I'll need him, I'll need Majinski, and some other guys we may mention in this video, and certainly in the offseason, to really step up in big and meaningful ways. Bit of a sour note for David Bednar in his last appearance. Blew I think a save opportunity to the Nationals. His ERA went over 3 because of that, but still, I mean, he's excellent as a closer, and stopper is really what another part of his role is. How many saves did he have this year? If I can maybe pull it up here quickly. I don't know if I can or not. How many saves? He had 20 saves after having 30 last year. Being in that stopper role may limit some of those save opportunities when you're coming in and say the 7th inning, get out of a jam and things like that. But he'll be arbitration eligible, and he certainly will get either a long-term deal or have that arbitration for 2024. Garrett Stallings, he was up and down. We optioned him so many times this year, 5 times, which is the max you can do in one season. Started 12 games, 3 appearances out of the pen. He's got good control, kind of the reverse of most of our pitchers. Most of our pitchers are high stuff. They throw hard, their control shaky. He's the opposite, throws 90 to 92. His stuff is low, but does have really good control overall. So he'll be a long relief, emergency starter type of guy for us. Jason Foley, claimed off of waivers from Detroit, did well for us overall. Probably arbitration. He's arbitration eligible. We'll probably tender him to a cheap contract overall. Will Crow had some injury issues, but he came back late in the year, pitched well, so he'll be part of the bullpen probably in 2024. Darian Nunez, a guy we got last year off of waivers from the Dodgers, never really pitched as well as some of these numbers indicate. He does strike out guys a lot, really 4+ pitches, but we'll see what happens there. He could be a lefty for us. Cody Bolton's about the worst pitcher you're ever going to see, a 9.3 ERA and 11 appearances, 1 start, and the last game of the year he started and helped beat the Dodgers, which was kind of crazy there, although his stat line was, he only allowed 2 earned, so there were some errors, I guess, to blame there, but just kind of let him eat some innings to close out the year and say he could pitch in the majors a little bit. And then Sam Howard, he bounced on and off the roster, and he was just destroyed every time he came up and pitched. An ERA of almost 7, a BABIP which was, to be fair, unbelievably high at 400, but I'm not sure if he'll be part of the team next year. There are some injuries with other pitchers to talk about as well. Bryce Wilson had gotten hurt, but pitched okay for us overall. Tim Hill, I think got hurt very late in the season, rotator cuff strain, really good lefty type, so he may be a trade candidate for us. And then elsewhere, Phoenix Sanders, I think I mentioned this before, threw a couple pitches for us and then has yet to pitch since, unfortunately. Kevin Newman got hurt in the minors. O'Neal Cruz, by the way, didn't mention him. He got hurt with a bone bruise in his knee. Negative WAR player, but I think better things are to come for him, and he still hit 18 home runs this year for us. So, and his strikeout rate, not too bad, 22%, 23%. What was it last year? About the same. So that's better than what I thought it would be overall. And then one of our pitchers in the minor leagues, Luis Oviedo. Let's see, he tore his meniscus in his knee, so at least it was not an arm injury. He was down in AA, really did a good job in AA, then got hurt in AAA, so he has yet to pitch in the majors since 2021. Control, like many pitchers, is an issue. For the pitching staff, there are some promising arms. I think that's the strength of the organization, just the overall pitching talent. Michael Burrows, for example, who had some injuries, but he came back healthy and that pitched okay overall for us. Thomas, one of the best. He's now considered a top 10 prospect. Again, control, a big concern. Didn't light up AAA, but 24, if he works on that control a little bit, he can be a really good guy. His stuff is electric overall. Let's see, anybody else here to talk about? This guy, he had pitched for us, did not do a good job in the majors, and things really weren't all that great in AAA for him, unfortunately. Looking at AA now with the Altoona Curve, Eddie Ean. It's been a really pleasant surprise. He was excellent in AA. Still just 22, but a top 30 prospect in baseball. And I think that's a guy that's certainly on the upward swing. Jared Jones. He's an interesting guy. The overall scouting report looks excellent on Jared Jones. The movement, extreme fly ball is not great, but only a sub-1 home runs over 9 number. And yet his ERA plus, not as good as you want it to be. He's actually in AAA to begin the year, got shelled, moved him down to AA, and was better, but not as good as he could or should be. So, top 50, or at least the borderline guy. I want him to do well. It looks like he can be a good pitcher, but he's yet to actually make that happen and show he's ready to move up the ranks and can be considered a serious prospect for us. Brennan Malone, similar boat, some good stuff overall. Control an issue, his walk rate way too high, but can some of these guys put it all together? That's going to be the hope overall. And the last guy to look at, who I think might be injured, I think he got hurt very late in the year, unfortunately. Yeah, Quinn Priester, radial nerve decompression surgery. It's only 4 months, and so it's not as bad as I thought it might be, but he was dominant in AA. Actually did not move him up to AAA, but that's a guy that hopefully there's no serious side effects from him once he gets healthy. If not, then you have some really good pitching options, and you could see a really young but talented Pittsburgh Pirates pitching staff in 2024. So I think the idea is maybe have 4 of those guys in rotation with 1 veteran, maybe Keller, maybe somebody else, and let the young guys figure things out. One piece of good news is we have a lot of money to play with this offseason. I need to be and will be a lot more aggressive in terms of trades and maybe some free agent signings as well. We'll have even more money to play with than what this number is showing. We're not going to offer arbitration to Kevin Newman, probably to some other guys, maybe not Sam Howard, maybe not Anthony Banda. We probably will offer it to Mitch Keller just for a veteran guy there, but there'll be some names that we will not offer arbitration to. I think that might be the big name, though, at least in terms of Kevin Newman and that 2.6 arbitration estimate. So we'll have plenty of money there. In terms of a quick look at potential free agents for the offseason, again, center field catcher, what I'm looking for. Admittedly, it is tough to find some of those guys that might fit really well. That's not going to... We have money, but I'm not going to spend it recklessly as a team that's yet to really prove themselves that they can win and seriously compete. So not 100% sure. Maybe a Max Stassi could make some sense. Potentially, we'll see about that. And then in center field, I will say, may have to go the trade route there if we want to find an upgrade in terms of a true center fielder. Kevin Kiermaier, a guy we looked at last year, did not ultimately sign. I just don't think he has a serious enough upgrade there over Travis Swaggerty. Is he better than Swaggerty? Yeah, I think so. But is he that much better? We'll have to see. That'll be at least on our list to consider. So we have some prospects there. I think we have a really deep team at second base in terms of some of the young guys. And so there might be some moves there. A guy like Henry Davis, I just don't really ever see him succeeding in the big leagues. Now, he was excellent in high A. Greensboro last year, 2.5 WAR player, 124 WRC plus. That guy should have some trade value, so he may be on the move as a former first-round pick. We'll see, but it's a big offseason for the Pirates. Have to really make some serious moves to get some serious changes for this team. Right now, the Cubs, a team to beat with adding a lot of pieces this offseason. Jacob deGrom, they add him. He's been, as expected, unbelievably good for them. And so it's a more competitive Central than it was this time a year ago. But for right now, focus on the Pirates, improving offense, getting some of these young guys to develop and grow and get better and find their consistency. That's going to be the key. One more thing to look at. It was a really exciting end to our season, so I want to bring up a highlight from that finale. Hopefully there is no feedback in terms of the audio. I just might screw something up with my new settings here, but that's just a fair warning. But let's look at the last game of the year, a win over the Dodgers. So to set the stage for you guys, Pirates down 5-1, bottom 9, 2 outs, bases loaded for Nick Gonzalez in his first year with the Pirates. First pitch swinging, and Gonzalez in the center. That's going to bring home 1 to keep the bases loaded. Now it's 5-2. Diego Castillo coming up, full count, bases loaded still. Tying run at first, and Castillo's going to draw the walk. And so now it's 5-3. And that's going to bring up Endy Rodriguez on a first pitch swing. And he's going to launch one over the Clemente wall, walk-off grand slam for the Pittsburgh Pirates as they beat the Dodgers 7-5. And so it was a very tough season overall for Pittsburgh, winning just 64 games, but that 64th one, the win of the year. So that's going to wrap things up. Next video will be the off-season, and we'll play opening day of the 2024 season. Let me know your thoughts and maybe an off-season plan and suggestion of what we should do next year. And be sure to let me know those comments in the comments below. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.